My guest today is actress Charlotte Jackson Coleman, known to UK audiences for her work on Sky Sports News, ITV's 71 Degrees North, and The Big Quiz Sports Special, has quickly transitioned into an acclaimed actress since 2021. Now, her critically praised role in A Positive Contribution earned her a Best Actress nomination at the Romford Film Festival. Now, in her newest role, Secrets, she plays Sammy, a resilient single mother who returns to her hometown after her own mother is murdered. As she tries to protect her daughter while confronting a long buried past, Charlotte's layered performance anchors the film with a quiet intensity and a very strong emotional power. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome actress Charlotte Jackson Coleman and her newest film, Secrets, to the show. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that lovely intro as well.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And I have to ask, as I was reading some of your background, how and why did you transition from a television host to an actress?
So, I think it's because since I was younger, I'd always wanted to act. And as I grew up, I went to a very academic school, and no one around me, my friends, family, none of them was involved in any sort of industry to do with acting, actually, even presenting. It was all sort of medics or lawyers or teachers. And so I went to do a year at medical school, actually, at university. My father was a doctor, and I didn't want to do it because it's a really long old, as you've got to be really into it. It's 4 years, and I'd want to specialize. So the happy medium was I have a chat with my parents, and I did a journalism course, and then started presenting. Loads of various presenting jobs, from sports news to, as you mentioned, quiz shows. Spending a month in the Arctic on that was like a winter version of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. So 71 Degrees North was very cold, very good fun. But all the celebrities on it, I think, when the filming stopped, thought they would be put in a nice hotel or something. And that wasn't the case. They literally had to camp out in the Arctic. Anyway, so I loved my career, enjoyed it, but I always had this sort of urge in me to act. And my husband's job took us to China, and I started, this is before COVID, and I started Googling like online acting courses. And I did a bit. And then when we came back to the UK, just before COVID as well, I started, because the children started school, I was like, right, I can do this now. And I started my in-person course. Got a bit delayed when no one could move about or go anywhere. And then I graduated as a mature student in 2021. So I just basically had the time. It was the right time of my life to do it. But during the time when I was presenting, I did get offered a role as a presenter on the Keith Lemon film. And the head of Lionsgate at the time, Nick Manzi, came down just by chance to watch the day's shooting that I was doing. And he was like, "Oh, you should be doing this, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't really know how to do it." Carried on presenting. I loved my presenting job, and I had a really good career. And then I think that sort of ignited it a little bit. And then, like I said, when the children started school, I was like, right, I can try and do it now.
Well, you mentioned that you graduated as a mature acting student. When you went full bore into acting, um, what are the roles like being in your age demo?
Yeah, so I think it's obviously a lot less roles in my age bracket, but I think it's getting better. I think more recently, more sort of meatier roles or more main roles are being written for like older women. There's a lot of sort of roles out there for 20 to 30-year-old girls, but I also think there's probably a huge amount of 20 to 30-year-old girls as well vying for those roles. And I think it does sort of teeter out a bit. The older you get, probably the less people stay in it. Because that was another thing I was saying to my friend the other day. If I had come into acting earlier, there's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of, you've got to want to do it, and you've got to also not worry if you've done a tape for a casting director. I don't know if it's the same in America, but they don't always get back to you because they're so busy. I mean, to be fair, I've been quite lucky. I've had some lovely emails back when I've got down to the last two roles, but then I've looked at who's got the role, and I was like, well, it's totally different to me. But I haven't. I think being older as well, mentally, I can deal with it better. Um, because I speak to a lot of younger girls and they get very depressed and very, so I've had quite a few of them playing my daughters, and I like speak to them and encourage them. And some of them, are like, oh, I think I'm done already. And they've only been sort of doing it for 3, 4 years. So I think that there are more roles, but obviously not as many if I was in my 20s or 30s.
You know, uh, I do so many interviews with filmmakers who do short films. And, a lot for those that are nominated for BAFTA or an Oscar. And it amazes me that the filmmakers themselves are usually under the age of 35, a lot of them under the age of 30. But then their films, most of the roles go to older actors. And I find that enlightening as well as refreshing. And of course, I tell people all the time the short film is going to be the new feature here in the future.
Yeah, I've actually done quite a few short films. I really enjoy them. There's always a sense of camaraderie on the film set as well. It's like quite intense. You can do the film in like quite a short amount of time. I've got one coming out soon, and the story is brilliant. And again, the filmmakers are all in their early 20s, most of the crew as well. And it was myself and a guy that played my husband, and then it was our daughter. That was all the people in it, and it's set in the future. It's called Dyed in the Wool, and it's about having the chips in our brain that sort of blur the line between reality and virtual reality, so reality and VR. So I've lost a child, and I won't go into the whole film, I don't want to
Oh,
give it
I
away,
don't
but
know.
yeah,
I think I may want to interview the director about that one because that is a great subject for a short film. Now,
yeah.
your brand new role as Sammy in the new feature film Secrets. This film, and I watched the whole film. Um,
Good.
it starts out dark and tense, and it finishes the same way. And there is really no rest between the beginning and the end. This is probably one of the best psychological thrillers that I've seen in quite a while. And because you're the lead role, and I was watching all of your scenes in this film, how did you prepare to play a character who has hidden trauma, hiding a secret, but she truly wants to keep that secret buried forever?
Yeah, thank you very much for those kind words as well, I've got to say. But so it was very emotionally draining, but to prepare for the role, I do the same actually if it's a feature film or a short film. I really go into the background of the character, and I start off from day dot to where they are now, because you and me, we are as we are because of our history, right? That shapes us and our personality and the experiences we've had. So I always, when I get the script, I like to learn the script and know it, but I learn it with no emotion. And then yeah, so literally, because I think acting is reacting, so you want to be in the moment. I don't plan anything. So that say I like we bounce off each other, and luckily, if you're with an actor that does the same, that's when like magical moments are created. And I do like the background of the character, like how I grew up, who I grew up with, my likes, my dislikes, and then I'll write a little diary so that when you're put in a situation, say there's a sudden script change last minute, or a lot of the final scene was just improvised. We knew the general like structure of it, the arc of it, but the script was kind of left to us in a way. Um, and so I think if you've done all the background work and you know who you are as a character, then that's fine. It's the and but all of that, none of that is being talked about. That's just for me, and then it gets put to the side, and then you go on to film. And obviously, talking to the director, Chris Norton, he was brilliant. A real powerhouse, very positive, very enthusiastic, and really helped us in some of the really emotional moments to get to where we needed to go. Um, and as well, the emotional moments, I would put like sometimes I find music very emotive, and so I'll put headphones in and listen to a particular song to get me into that moment. And I did read actually Stephen Graham, an actor who's in Adolescence on Netflix, but brilliant actor here in the UK, and you probably know who he is. And he was saying that for each character he does, he has a different aftershave because he finds smell very emotive. Um, but I think that's the same with me with music. So I have a different playlist for different character. But a lot of work was put into knowing the character, knowing Sammy. And although, you know, you've got to like the character as well because it's you. So even if you had whoever the character is that you're playing, there's got to be the element that you like yourself as well. But yeah, I think it's all the background work that I do so that you know the character inside out.
When I was watching this film, and and not every filmmaker, I'll just say, not every director can do, not everyone does it right, where you're doing character building, but you also have a film with flashbacks. And when I sit, and one of my favorite things in films, even if I'm watching a streaming series, the first thing I want to watch is the first three episodes because that's where all the character building begins. And so, but in this film, it was done so perfectly because flashbacks can be very difficult. Not filming them, because that's mostly in the editing department, but as a whole, this film, what I loved about the character building and the flashbacks is that the audience can easily understand what's going on. You know, so because there's multiple storylines in this film that we're not sure where everything's going, but of course, I'm not going to spoil anything, but they all come together at the end, don't they?
Yeah, I think flashbacks, like you said, they could turn out quite cheesy as well, couldn't they? I think he's done a brilliant job of it. I love the way they sort of changed the look of them all and the sort of music that goes with it. I'm glad you say you know what's going on. And this was the first thing I asked my mum actually when she watched it. I was like, "Did you understand everything?" And it, like you say, all comes together. And I think the flashbacks are a necessity of the film. It's very vital that it's there as well because you can kind of see the relationship, the past relationships, and what Sammy went through. I'm not going to say too much again either. So I think they have their really good place. And Georgia, who I don't want to say too much, but who plays one of the characters. Um, I just thought some of her looks were brilliant. It was like that she was giving in as her character. I said that to her yesterday. I said, "Oh, I forgot your little subtle looks of the eyes." I was like, "They're really good."
You know, I was, and when it comes to a psychological thriller, what I loved about Secrets is that the director, he does this, he knows how to put the pieces together for the very slow reveal, but the audience is captured because there is not one element in this film that is slow. You know, I've had filmmakers tell me, I was focusing on the slow burn. The slow burn is okay as long as you don't make a slow film. Now,
Yeah,
this film is not slow whatsoever. I am literally watching every scene waiting, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And the way that the characters come into view, the way the characters interact with one another, as an audience, we have the tendency to start playing detective and we're trying to figure it out. But this is a film, nobody is going to figure it out because
yeah.
it only happens at the end. And again, Charlotte, the whole film was just brilliant.
Oh, I'm really pleased about that. But like you say, that one of the joys is that you're at home making your guesses of what's going on, who's done what, and yeah, I think you're right. I love the fact it's so character driven, but it is pacey because things are going on, and you want to watch it again, like keep watching it. Like my husband watched it only for the second time yesterday, and he also saw different things he hadn't seen before, and he was like, "Oh, this is brilliant." And he said, "I can't." He said, "It's so there's so much suspense in it, and tension that you don't want to leave the screen. You want to carry on. So yeah, and I think Chris has done a really good job of the writing and the arc of the story, but he is all about the character. I think it's really important to have like a story where you're immersed and invested in the characters and you want to know what's happened. And I think we're hoping as well by the end of it, because it's a cautionary tale, right? Moral dilemma. And it's a warning, the cost of the preservation, I guess, of the expense of truth. And at the end, you're thinking who's good, who's bad, who was right, who was wrong, whose behaviour is justified. So I love the fact at the end it's still a bit like up in the air, like there's questions there. And so we hope it becomes a talking point as well with people.
Yeah, yeah, because I never like to spoil a film. I want everybody to see it, and I want everybody to have the full experience. But I think we can safely say that this film is based on three friends back in the day of their high school years, one boy, two girls, and it really starts off, well, eventually, I think, there's a storyline of jealousy where
Yeah,
two's company, three's a crowd. And when that happens, which is really just kind of the basis of some of the story here, is that in many of those cases, it ends with somebody getting hurt.
totally. Yeah, totally.
You
And I
know,
think,
and no, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and I think it also shows like what behavior jealousy can sort of bring out in you, and then how far people go to preserve themselves and hide the truth. And then I think there's that element that an actual fact, your past will always catch up with you. The truth will always come out. I mean, everyone has got something in the past that they're not proud of, that they kind of wish, oh, and it's that matters like, oh, but you learn from the past as well, right? I can't say that, I can't say I haven't done anything that I'm really not proud of. There's obviously things I'm like, oh my God, did I do that? Or, that's just human nature and life. But I think obviously this is going to a bit of an extreme without saying much away, but whatever people have done in their backgrounds and in their past, it's the who's more important. Is the truth more important? Are you more you wanting to stop the truth coming out by preserving yourself and looking after yourself by self-protection, or are you actually going to tell everyone the truth, which could cost more, but it shows that if it comes out later on in life, more people can get hurt and more things can go wrong.
And I'm not going to say who the character is, but you know, there's one that is trying to hide the secret. I'll just say that. And 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 at first I'm like, okay, that person didn't do it. But as time goes on, then you're like, and you don't really know. Again, it's one of the it's one of the best endings of a film I've seen, but also probably one of the darkest I've ever seen. I mean, it really upset me, Charlotte. Uh,
Which,
and then,
without sounding terrible, good, because that's kind of what we wanted.
well,
But yeah,
Christopher did not give us what we wanted. He he took us to the edge and then pushed us over. So,
yeah.
but you have to have films that have the unpredictable end because that's what makes them stand out, and that's why this film stands out because he didn't give us what other filmmakers would have given us, in the norm. If it was Warner Brothers or MGM or Paramount, we would have expected the expected, but not in this one. So it stands out by itself. But this film shows that one hidden secret, which I can understand why it stayed hidden because the consequences are huge if it was revealed back in the day. I'll just say that. But one hidden secret can hurt multiple people. And when I'm watching this film, I'm thinking, okay, you're talking about maybe splitting up families, exiling others, some never knowing who they really are or where they came from. And this whole film covered everything.
Yeah, shows you just that one lie can lead to a massive chain of events. It's like the domino effect, isn't it? Like builds and builds and builds, more lies, more lies. And you're right, the ending is not what people expect. And the feedback has actually been that, oh my gosh, that's not what we expected. But in actual fact, it's a much better ending because it would be the cliche ending, let's say, if other things had happened. So I'm really pleased about that. I remember reading the script the first time, and one obviously good sign about the script is that I didn't want to put it down, and I was like, what? And I was guessing like you. I was like, oh, that's obvious. Oh God, hang on a minute. No, it's not. Oh yes, it is. Oh no, it's not. And I think you sort of flip flop between what you think's going on, and then at the end, and I was a bit like, oh, right, didn't expect that. And I love that, and I think that I wanted to do the role as soon as I'd read the script. I was like, yes, I have to do this because, like you say, it's not the expected ending. It covers everything, and I think you're not quite sure who you like and who you don't like in it either, apart from
Well,
one person, perhaps.
well, Christopher did something towards the beginning that, in a way, is a mind game to the audience. And he makes us not like the detective. And because, in a way, he has his own little secret, not that it necessarily comes out, but it shows how flawed a man he really was. And what he was hiding and then what he was investigating, even though they were two different things, there were similarities in a way, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And Sean played a brilliant Detective Richards. I loved playing opposite him as well because he's the ones that we have the chat like we know what the scene is, we know what the lines are. You sort of give, okay, yeah, you can do this, you can do that. Let's just go for it and see what happens. So yeah, he played a really good role. And the scene at the beginning you're talking about, which makes you instantly not like him. It was like I hadn't seen that. I'd heard about it being filmed. And I was like, oh my God, that's such a good scene because straight away you're like, oh, what a horrible person.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. But then what happens is that Christopher plants the seed in the audience's mind thinking it's him. But of course, as time goes on, I'm going, no, I said there's something else. But here's the thing. There were two elements that I just loved. And ladies and gentlemen, when you get the chance to see Secrets, you got to pay attention because there's these well, little secrets, I guess, that are slowly revealed, but never gives us the full answer, even at the end, because that's where the characters really bring forth what's really happening. I love the use of the photographs. Um, there were a lot of secrets and hints and all of those pictures that built the story. So even though there's flashbacks in this film, and like you had said earlier, I love the fact that they did a different colorization so that way you could keep up with the flashbacks because they were very easy to understand. But it was the photographs that were passed around from Sammy to Ava to the detective, and then it causes the audience again to play detective and try to put all the pieces together, but we never really know, do we?
No, like I say, that is where he's good, like at drawing you into it, immersing you in the story, and getting the audience involved. Really, like I say, because everyone likes to play the detective. That's why we're watching it, isn't it? To sort of be entertained, be on the edge of our seat, and also think that we know what's going on. And like, because I remember that like, the first time one of my friends watched it, they were like, "Oh, I know, this is what's going to happen," and they were totally wrong. And I went, "Okay, well, keep watching. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong." And they were like, "Oh my gosh!" And they kept changing their minds about the people throughout. Even Detective Richards, there's a moment when they're like, actually, I quite like him, and it changed. I was a bit like, really, but yeah, there's elements in there that are all just sort of drawn. I think if you do watch it a second time as well, you see even more little sort of nuggets in there. You're like, oh my God, I missed that. I missed that the first time. And then you sort of pick up on the other little hints that there were in the story and sort of almost right in front of you, but you wouldn't have picked them up until you've seen the end and you watch it again.
Well, I actually had to rewind this scene because when I was watching the film and I would pause it, I would make notes, and then all of a sudden there was this flashback scene, and I went, "Wait a minute, what was that?" So I replayed it, and then I stopped it, and I went, "Huh, what does this actually mean?" The funny thing was, and I'll tell you the scene. It's the flashback scene where Sammy finds her two other friends. I'll just say
Okay,
that. She finds them. And it's the scene in which Sammy, as a teenager, she drops to her knees. And then it
yeah.
moves
Okay.
to a modern scene. And I went, wait a minute. I backed it up. And I'm like, okay, what's the deal? Because if you notice, the clip is really quick.
Yeah.
It's just quick enough. And then I went, so I just kind of made a little note. And then the funny thing about that scene is we absolutely do not know what that is actually about till the very end. So I love the way Christopher played the audience. He gave us this super quick, maybe it's a clue, but if the audience, most of the audience may not even catch it.
They will
But when
now.
I, but when I saw it, I went, oh, what's the deal? So then, um, so I have to say I love that. I loved it. Now, for you, what was the most challenging scene for you as an actress to do in this film?
So, the most challenging scene. So, physically, the final scene, we were in sub-zero temperatures of like -5, the coldest night in January ever, in the middle of a forest in Surrey. And but like I was quite lucky because we were filming in jackets because it was the time of year, so I'd had a jacket on anyway, and some of the poor crew had forgotten their jackets, so hot water bottles were being passed around. That was quite testing because um, it was the energy. I still needed to have energy in it. And obviously sort of do your take and then you reverse the camera and it's on the other person and whoever else, and you want to give them as an actor as much as you gave before because you don't just want to be sort of, oh, I've done my bit now. Some people apparently do that, but none of us were doing it. You want to give the actor as much as they gave you. So that was quite challenging in a sort of physical sense that, and obviously it's very emotional as well, but it was both. There's another scene which we filmed quite early on and in the bedroom with Ava, my daughter, Anna Georgina, the actress. And that was quite, it was very emotional, but I think you've got to be careful because it was more internal. So rather than coming out and being like bawling your eyes out, you've got to obviously be understand what you're saying as well. And then I think in the end, well, I knew it was going to be in the script anyway, but there are flashbacks during that conversation. But that was quite, I had to get the sort of level right. But Chris was really good. We literally did it in one take actually in the end. And he let me get into the right sort of mood in my head, and it was just myself and Anna and him in the room. So there wasn't like loads of people moving about, and so we did that in one take. So that was good. So that was quite difficult just because it was very early on in the filming, and I think as an actor you're like, right, have I got that right? Have I got that wrong? And yeah, but I was pleased with that. But I think the director made all scenes. It's very difficult for me to say what was difficult because every it's all very emotional. I'm on a downward spiral, aren't I? Like breaking down, basically. Um, but it sounds very strange, but I loved filming the film. Um, and even though, yes, it was emotionally draining, feel worn out by the end of the day, it was such a team effort. And the morale's always so high, and we all loved it. Like, all the crew, all the cast loved the story. And like you say, Christopher wrote such a good script and he was such a brilliant director. And we were all so invested in it that it's not like I didn't find it hard. Obviously, it's getting into the emotion is hard, but I just loved it, basically.
Well, well, you see, I was about to bring that scene up. because in the scene when you finally open up to your daughter Ava, played by Anna Georgina, um, I mean, when I watched that scene, Charlotte, I was like, wow, because you brought a stellar performance. And I literally made a note of it because out of the I think the two biggest scenes in this film was was the bedroom scene with you and Ava, when part of the story comes to light.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the ending scene, because I felt your emotion in the scene earlier with Ava when you're finally telling her the truth that she wants to know. But then your performance in the ending scene, that just that doesn't rip your heart out, that rips your guts out. Because your performance draws the audience in to where I don't want to give the emotion, but we feel it to its core. So yeah, you brought it home.
Thank you. It's really kind. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the same night of the -5. And we are all standing around it. That was a tough scene. Again, I don't want to say too much, but where my head had to go as well for the emotion for that. Like I did have the headphones out, but I also sort of, because we were so close by then, all of us, I can't really say too much, that I could feel that it felt real, if you know what I mean. Like, so I put myself in that moment, and the strange thing was, we're in the forest making all this noise, and I was thinking, God, people around us must, like, a couple of them had been told we're filming, but I'm sure there's other people that could hear what was going on. No one came running though, but yeah, I was a bit like, gosh. But yeah, it was, like I say, that was intense, very emotionally draining, for everyone. But I think where Chris, like I said, where Chris is so enthusiastic about it, and he bless him, was in flip flops and a t-shirt until a bit later, when eventually put his fleece on. I was like, come on, keep yourself warm. But he's so like on it all the time, and like, he's infectious, his personality. So I think that's kind of, like I said, that's why the whole thing was so enjoyable, which sounds a strange thing to say because of the film context, sort of thing. But
You know, like I said before, this film was is tense, it's dark from the beginning to end. And I know you've already explained how you got into character, but because this film is very dark, your character is very traumatic. Um, Between scenes, when you're not filming, maybe Christopher's filming the other characters. Um, where did you put your mindset so that way you weren't living in the dark space the whole time?
yeah, so obviously people have their different ideas. You have people that stay in character the whole time, method acting completely the whole time. Um, I did train method acting, but not to the extent that I will stay in character as I come off, because, like you say, it's such a dark place to be that you can't stay there. So I find it. I think probably I did throughout the whole period we're shooting. There's obviously, it sounds funny, but probably there is a sort of intensity and a sort of, not melancholy because as such, but something always a bit there, because you're going in every day and playing this character. But then as soon as I finish my actual scene, I would like say we'll go and eat and stuff, and I'm just chatting to whoever's like there, the crew or the cast. I love my food, and so I think as soon as you sort of break out from there, for me, I find that okay, like, quite easy. I think there are the odd times where I stopped filming my scene and I knew that he was doing a quick other bit and I'd have to go back on, and I probably would stay in that zone. But the thing is, you can peak as well with your emotion. Like, if like something has upset you in real life and you cry, 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 and then the tears stop and you're like exhausted from crying and you can't cry anymore, or you're just exhausted, so you can't actually sort of keep going. But there is the odd time where I was like, okay, I've got to sort of still stay in that mindset, and I'd sort of stand on my own or be like, with my headphones in the corner, like just hanging out my own. But most of the time, if I just go and speak to some of the cast or crew that aren't like involved in that scene, then that would get me out my headspace, to be honest.
Yeah, I can say is that the film Secrets has an absolute perfect cast. And does Secrets debut as a theatrical release or is it going to streaming?
It's gone straight to streaming, actually. Yeah, so it was released in the UK on Amazon yesterday, and in America, it's on a few different more platforms, actually. Yeah, so it's on, I think, Amazon, Google, Apple, and a few others. But so it's gone straight to streaming, which I think it always was going to go straight to streaming. I didn't think it was going to have theatrical, but I don't mind that. I quite like the fact that, because so many people I know don't. I mean, I love going to the cinema, I love it, but there's a lot of people that don't anymore, which is a shame. And I think they should support the theatre and the cinemas and stuff like that. And also, it's an independent film, so I'm hoping people support it because it's an independent film.
Well, yeah, but I'm a big supporter of independent films. I would have loved to see this film in the theater because as dark and tense and traumatic this film is to watch, I cannot even imagine the emotional feeling of the audience if they were sitting in a theater seeing this. Uh, I would almost think that they would be leaving traumatized.
Yeah, I no, I do agree. I have said to people when they're going to watch it, I said, watch it when you've got time to watch the whole thing. Don't watch half of it. You have to watch it all. I said it to my mum as well, dad as well. We concentrate on it. So like you've got to have the lights off. I think like really zone in on it because you know what the life is today. Like so many people, I don't do it, and I make a conscious effort of telling my family not to do it, but sit there in front of the TV on their phones or multitasking. And I think you need to get immersed in the film, and like you say, then you'll feel the full effect of it and the characters. And that's probably why, like you say, being in the cinema is brilliant with that kind of film because you're not allowed any other distractions, the lights are down, and you watch it, and you would get totally immersed into it.
Yeah, I almost think this film kind of gave me a nightmare, but I
Sorry.
think and for ladies and gentlemen, it's on streaming. Check out the platforms. It's called Secrets. And when you and just like Charlotte said, you have to watch this film in its entirety. Put your phone down. Don't pay attention to anything else. Maybe dim the lights a bit to add more to the mood. But I will tell you this: when this film is over, you need to watch a comedy or something that'll put a smile on your face because you're really going to need to balance this out. Because, like I said, I've seen psychological thrillers before, but wow, this one rates at the top because it is. I'm just going to. It's a slow, gut wrenching story, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to give it away. So, but for you, Charlotte, again, absolute stellar performance. But do you have any new projects coming up after the release of Secrets, besides the
I do. I
short
have
film
one.
that you mentioned?
Yeah, I do have another film coming to film in November, which I can't say about. And there's another project that I'm executive producing on, which will be for a terrestrial channel, either ITV or BBC, that I will be acting in as well, based on a true story. And that's just going through the legal process at the moment. We've got the person who it's based on behind it, and it's a really important story that needs to be told. So that will be out hopefully next year.
Oh, well, I can't wait to see all of these upcoming projects that you are working on. And ladies and gentlemen, Secrets, the haunting new psychological thriller, features standout performances from Charlotte Jackson Coleman and emerging actor producer Mike Dickman as they lead a taut and emotionally complex story of trauma, truth, and survival. But after her mother's passing, Sammy, again a resilient single mother, grapples with the looming threat of a breakdown while keeping her mysterious past hidden. Ava, Sammy's daughter, her exploration uncovers more than she originally intended to reveal. This film is tense, it is dark, and it takes the audience to a place they are not prepared for. There are multiple storylines interweaving with one another that all come together at the end. You may need therapy after seeing this film, but for all of you who love psychological suspense thrillers, then you have found the perfect film. And Charlotte, I want to thank you so much for, well, sharing this very dark psychological thriller with me today. I know that the audience, when they see it, they're going to remember this one for a long time.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're very, very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, and Audible, and more. And remember, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.